everybody? Zon gets 134 here.
And as always, I'm Average Joe Squad.
And welcome to the first episode of Season 4 of Remember the Hyphen, the show where we look at comic books, movies, and everything in between. And I'm sorry it's now February when we started shooting this back up.
For those who haven't been keeping up, or if you're not from the eastern part of the country, we've been getting slammed with snow, it seems like every other week. So we kept thinking about, like, when we're going to shoot, and then the minute we would start actually thinking about it, there'd be a snowstorm warning, and then we would just get piled under, and it'd be like, we really shouldn't stay out late filming.
Yeah, the other was, honestly, Spidey Miss was a fucking, like, I'm not going to say this as a bad thing. It was a fucking chore this year because No Way Home came out that December, so we wanted to make sure we had content, like, almost, like, twice a week. So it was kind of, like, exhausting. So, our 2 weeks suddenly became 4, and I'm like, you know what? January is a dead month for YouTube content anyways. So. But we're back now, and we've got a couple reviews lined up here, especially because as of recording this, it's February, which is the month of love. It's also Black History Month, but we're two white dudes, so I don't really think we're qualified to do anything about that. But I've always been kind of wanting us to do, like, not like something special for it. It's not like a super special holiday, but I did want to do kind of something with Valentine's Day, like, even if it's just like some things here and there. And that's when I remembered, and also thanks to the fact that a certain Marvel hero showed up in No Way Home, I'm feeling a little bit of that yellow sentimentalism. That's right.
Is that actually a thing? I'm just wondering.
I don't know. I just kind of went with.
Okay, I was about to say, is that actually a thing?
Because for the next episode, I've got a line set up for it, but this is Daredevil Yellow, and also consider this a preview for my birthday month, where we're going to be doing nothing but Daredevil shit the whole month. And yes, we are going to be reviewing that movie. No, not that movie. The good movie. No, it's not fucking Elektra.
I want to review Elektra, though.
You stay the fuck out of this right now.
Motherfucker, I bought it on Blu-ray.
We're going to watch it in a month that is not my birthday month. Thank you very much.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to cancel the cake, because I was going to come out in a Jennifer Gardner outfit.
I would fucking punch you so fucking hard.
I was going to have Evanescence playing and everything.
Anyway, this is Daredevil Yellow by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sally. And I know you're thinking, we're going to be doing this and the other one. We're not going to be doing Hulk Gray, because honestly, neither of us own that.
And I'll be honest, I'm not a big Hulk guy. I never have been.
Same. But anyway, I figured we'd do this one first because, like I said, I kind of wanted us to start doing some Daredevil content this year because, again, Charlie Cox is back as Daredevil, aka my favorite on-screen Daredevil. But anyhow, so what actually is your feelings on Daredevil as the character and, like, what you know of him?
So I've honestly always kind of liked Daredevil. My first exposure to the character was honestly the Ben Affleck movie. I remember when it came out, it was right after Spider-Man. But, like, I had known about Daredevil because of him showing up in Spider-Man TAS, so I knew he kind of had, like, a working relationship with Spider-Man, and then I had a couple comics that I would read that he was in, so I kind of always associated him with Spider-Man. Plus, he's in the PC game / the PS1 game. So it's like but I never really knew all that much about him. I was never able really to find his stuff. Like, I knew the rudimentary basics basically. Yeah. But I didn't know a lot in depth about stuff.
Yeah, which also reminds me, I need to get you that Daredevil omnibus that has the stories for April in it.
I need to get you some of your books back already.
Yeah, too. So, well, then it's probably a good thing I had you read this, since it actually comes with a bit of the origin story for Daredevil in it. But yeah, basically, this story takes place roughly after the events of Daredevil, Guardian Devil by Kevin Smith. Actually, before I get into that, I just realized I should talk about my knowledge of Daredevil. Probably between the two of us, I'm probably have the more knowledge of Daredevil, just because I've low-key liked the character, but I didn't really get into him until, honestly, probably the Ben Affleck movie and the fact that the Netflix show came out, which someday we'll review that, but that's a that's a big endeavor because I gotta.
Someone's gonna have to gift me season 3 of that shit on Blu-ray because
Yeah.
I'm already having for. The biggest problem with getting any of the Netflix stuff Marvel-wise is that not all of it is on Blu-ray officially, so you kind of have to go to some less than official sources.
Yeah, because Netflix.
I have sources for the stuff.
Yeah.
It's just expensive.
Yeah, because I want to say the most that's out for those is the first 2 seasons of Daredevil. I think Jessica Jones might have gotten
Jessica Jones season 1 is out. Luke Cage season 1 is out. Iron Fist season 1 is out. Punisher, none of it's out, I believe. I bought a bootleg copy of both seasons, so I have it.
Yeah. But yeah, I actually my first big getting into Daredevil was with well, first I knew of him thanks to Spider-Man TAS because that was my first really big dive into anything Marvel, if I'm honest. I remember playing a lot as him in the video game Marvel Nemesis Rise of the Imperfects, where he's actually one of the better characters in that game. Which, that game is weird. Like, it's really, really weird. I'd love for us to talk about that game at some point, but basically it was an attempt at Marvel making a bunch of video game characters so they could make a comic book off of them. And I don't think any of those characters are really had any sort of staying power in the Marvel universe. No. But it was a very weird fighting game because it was kind of an arena fighter where like you had like stuff in the area that you could fight with. Like you could pick up stuff with like Spider-Man's webs and you can throw it and stuff, but it was really weird. And the PS2 version I had, I don't know if that's how the game is on PS2, but the PS2 version of it's really fucking clunky. But so getting back to Daredevil, this takes place after the events of the Kevin Smith story, Daredevil Guardian Devil. Mainly because spoilers for Guardian Devil. Karen Page, a longtime Daredevil love interest. You'll be seeing more of her in April when we do the Daredevil stuff because she's in a big factor in one of the stories. She was Matt and Foggy's secretary or Girl Friday. She was long-running love interest for Matt. She disappeared in the events of Daredevil Reborn, and I don't want to get into that stuff because it's more important to that story. But basically, she comes back in Guardian Devil, and she's killed by Bullseye as part of this plot by a villain to ruin Matt's life. And this more or less is just the fallout of it. Because the whole thing is basically Daredevil reciting his history, and more or less he's writing like letters to her even though she's died, as kind of like a therapy sort of thing where he's writing this stuff to get like his feelings out for her. The fact that he feels very lost at what he should do. Like he doesn't even enjoy being Daredevil anymore. Like, you know, like he feels very lost on what he should be doing. And so it's actually really interesting because both the first issue and the second issue will have Daredevil like show up in his red costume, kind of give an idea of like this is taking place in the present. After that, though, it takes place with him in this costume, which is his yellow and black costume, which he originally debuted in the original Daredevil issue 1, guest starring Spider-Man, because that's what they did back then. And this is basically more what he was known for wearing in the Silver Age. He really didn't start wearing the red outfit until, I want to say the 70s or like late 70s, early 80s.
Early 80s.
Yeah.
Which that yellow costume is actually what we're supposed to be getting.
Yeah.
Him wearing in the She-Hulk show, if the leaks I've been seeing are correct.
Oh, I'm so fucking excited for him showing up as Daredevil. Like I can't tell you how excited I am to see Daredevil back.
They're gonna need to repaint the break room at work because this man's gonna fucking blow up.
Yeah. I really am. Because I love Daredevil. Like that, like, No Way Home would have gotten a 10 out of 10 for me just purely on Charlie Cox.
Well, one of the deleted scenes is there's more Charlie Cox.
No, I know. I know.
I'm just like, I was robbed of more Charlie Cox.
More Charlie Cox. But yeah, and so basically that's the premise of the book. I will admit, I really enjoy it. Now, I don't know how much this changes the original origin of Daredevil. I'm more familiar with the Frank Miller version of his origin, and also the stuff that he did in Born Again. Because while I am a big Daredevil guy, like I will admit I need to read more of his stuff. But I do love that we actually get a another version of his story of the origins of Daredevil. What was weird for me is that, like, they show, the death of his father battling Jack Murdock, and he's like a teenager or like a freshman in college, which is weird to me because in most other versions of the origin, Matt was like a very young boy when his father was killed. Now, I'm not saying he was like super young, but he was usually he was like 13 or 14, and in fact, the movie has Jack die when he's much younger. They also have it that him and Foggy have known each other since they were kids, which is again very weird because it's usually implied that he doesn't meet Foggy until they're in college. So like I said, much like with the story we're going to talk about next week, Jeff Loeb kind of plays fast and loose with continuity with these, which mostly I think is because these weren't supposed to completely be in canon. Or if they were, it was very much you kind of just ignore the stuff that's not.
It's kind of the same thing with Spider-Man Yellow or the Hulk Gray. It's
Spider-Man Blue.
Did I say yellow?
Spider-Man Yellow.
Yeah, Spider-Man Blue and Hulk Gray. It's just it's really like a Killing Joke kind of situation where it was supposed to be kind of just like a little side story that was out of continuity, but the popularity of it kind of just blew up and everybody really liked it. So they kind of just were like, okay, like we'll kind of roll it into canon, but it doesn't exactly fit. So we're kind of like, it's like forcing a jigsaw puzzle piece that really isn't supposed to go there. Yeah. But it just barely fits enough that it kind of slots into place.
And for the most part, otherwise, and it's kind of weird because like Loeb has a lot of continuity, does a lot of continuity stuff in these. Like the fact that like in one issue, the Fantastic Four show up and have they want to hire Matt Murdock to be their patenting attorney. What was your reaction when the Fantastic Four showed up?
It's like, oh my god, the FF are here in the Fantastic car.
Yeah. I also love that fucking the Thing just smashes his whole face through fucking Matt's window. I'm like, what are you, a fucking caveman, Ben? I know your grandma didn't raise you like that.
It's hiring time.
I also love that he calls Matt a shyster, and Sue is like, that's a rude thing to say, Ben. I'm like, how about the fact that he fucking smashed his face through his window? Although I do love
You're costing me money!
I do love that Reed was like, I'll pay for this. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on this book as you read it?
Like I said, I just kind of having like a very bare bones rudimentary knowledge of Daredevil. I've only seen a couple episodes of the first season of the Netflix show. Yeah. And I've seen the movie. Yeah. The theatrical version. I still actually haven't watched the director's cut all the way through. Yeah. Which I have both.
Also, if you want, I think it's still the director's cut is actually free on YouTube if you all feel like wanting to just watch it there.
It's also, if you want to buy it on Blu-ray, it's also dirt ass cheap on Amazon anymore. Yeah. But because you can only get the director's cut on Blu-ray anymore. At least I'm pretty sure. But anyway, I kind of had like, again, a bare rudimentary basics idea of the character. So a lot of the stuff I was reading was kind of like my first real like in-depth exposure to it. Like, I've seen and picked things up in passing. But I have to say, I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. Yeah. Like, I thought I was going to enjoy parts of it because, like, if you guys have watched all 120-something episodes by now, you know that I will generally, it doesn't matter how shit the movie is. Yeah. I usually will be able to pull a thing or two out that I actually liked. Yeah. So it's like, I'm easy to please. I'm pretty fucking easy, Yeah. So I was like, but like reading this, I was like, this is fantastic. Yeah. It made me want to read more Daredevil stuff, which I have the first Epic collection of Daredevil.
I'd love to borrow that of you sometime.
I think it's in print again now. It actually might be pretty cheap. I have to see if I need to just start forwarding you links and being like, here. Yeah. Let me give you a toxic relationship with Amazon Prime. I mean, I have.
To be fair, like, legitimately, Daredevil's one of those few characters where there's no such thing as like a bad run on him. Like the closest you come to, well, okay, probably the worst would be the shit with Shadowland, which that story is bad for a lot of reasons, but like you can just pretty much pick and choose whatever you like, because a lot of it's really good. As someone who just picked up the Devil in Cell Block D storyline in a trade, which that was really good, and I almost wanted to say we're going to do that for April, but I'm like, no, it's going to be enough that you're already reading 2 really good Daredevil stories. But but yeah, I really love the way they do coloring in this.
Yeah,
where a lot of it's in like black and white or kind of dull colors.
Kind of that like style that really a lot of us know from Spider-Man Blue.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the 3 of them kind of really share that art style.
Yeah,
and I mean, I think it works to the storyline's favor a lot, because it's a very moody type of coloring, and I think it fits a lot with like the tones of the story.
Yeah, whereas with Spider-Man Blue, there's this very sorrowful sense of melancholy throughout the book. With here, which is kind of hilarious for a devil, there's almost this kind of uplifting, like nostalgic feeling to it instead of like a sorrowful melancholy,
like a depressed kind of.
Yeah,
feel.
It's almost like a nostalgic melancholy where like Matt is sad, but like he's remembering the good times. So, what do you think of Matt throughout most of this?
Like I said, I really liked him in this book. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think that I liked the way the narration was told through him. Like his voice was real. Like I think is really what kind of glued the narrative together is kind of having his narration over everything.
Yeah,
because it's kind of like we're seeing like the world through his eyes, basically.
Yeah. I also really loved whenever him, Karen, and Foggy got to interact, particularly at the beginnings, whenever they would be in like the offices of Nelson and Murdoch. Which, yes, it's always been Nelson and Murdoch, just because I think it rolls better off the tongue than, even though Matt is technically the one that does most of the lawyering.
Well, that and like if we're going by last name, M comes before him.
Yeah. But I really liked all those scenes, especially like, Matt trying to stay out of Foggy's way because Foggy clearly has a thing for Karen, even though Karen has a thing for Matt and then later Daredevil. But like I kind of like the fact that like Foggy and Matt like they both are vying for Karen, but it's not like they're doing so in like a rude way to each other. Like Foggy feels frustrated, but that's mostly because, I mean, Matt Murdoch. He looks good in a suit, and women pretty much fall at his feet. It's just a shame that usually when Matt picks a woman, it's usually the ones with the emotional damage,
or the ones that end up getting killed,
Like, my God, the fact that he had a relationship with Typhoid Mary. Which even Deadpool will attest that woman is bad news. But yeah, I really liked all those scenes. Those are really good, and it really
it's nice little world building, you know, where it's like it's on a small scale. It's not like some big major galaxy threatening threat. It's very down to earth, very street level. Very relatable.
Like the only time it gets a little bit out there is when he fights Electro towards the end. And even then, which actually is based on an actual comic book story where he fights Electro. Like it works really, really well. And it was kind of nice reading a Daredevil story where it wasn't fucking bleak and depressing as shit.
Yeah.
As someone who's
looking at you, Frank Miller.
Yeah, well, as someone who one of my favorite stories is Daredevil Born Again, which literally starts with Matt being at his like absolute lowest. Like this was really nice to just have
something happy
happen for Matt. One of my favorites was when you told me about when you got to the issue with the owl and you were like, who the fuck is this? For those of you who don't know, I want to say his name is actually like Jim Owsley or James Owsley. The owl is this dude who straight up has his hair in like a V and the eyebrows, and he wears like a green pinstripe suit, which actually has working glider wings because he can fly.
This motherfucker looks wet.
And he calls himself the Owl.
I've been thinking about this the whole interview. This dude looks fucking wet.
Yeah.
Like he just stepped out of the shower and did not towel off.
Yeah. That one was kind of interesting because the Owl comes along and he's like, I want to hire Matt and Nelson and Murdoch to be my lawyer because I'm coming into some bad things happening, which more or less he's a gangster. He's actually one of the few gangsters that like actually tries to vie for the Kingpin's crime organization.
Yeah.
Which I'm also really surprised, as a side note, I don't think the Kingpin is mentioned once in this book. Like, like it was kind of nice that credit where credit's due, that Jeff Loeb didn't just pull out a Kingpin story for us to see. Like, it was really kind of nice to see Daredevil dealing with some of his lesser villains, and like not everything has to revolve around the Kingpin. I'm also really glad they went with the original version of the person who killed Matt's dad, which is a gangster known as the Fixer. Because in the movie they have Kingpin be the one that kills him, even though Kingpin's like an enforcer at that point. Like, it's just nice to like get some stories without the Kingpin every once in a while.
Yeah.
Especially because the spoilers for the next two Daredevil stories we're going to review on here, they both revolve around the Kingpin in some way, shape, or form. Also love that it hints to what would eventually happen to Karen when that lady's like, "You'll find, Miss Page, when you have a secret like this, you'll see how valuable it is and when you'll be willing to give it up," which is of course a reference to Daredevil Born Again, where Karen reveals Daredevil's name, secret identity to a guy for one last shot of heroin, because she became a heroin addict in that story. Because
Frank Miller wrote it. I was say Frank Miller wrote it. You say I couldn't have guessed.
Yeah, she leaves Matt and Foggy to become an actress, but then she can't get an actual job, so she becomes a porn star, and then she gets addicted to heroin.
Again, Frank Miller wrote it. I'm not surprised.
She
I would have been surprised if Frank Miller hadn't wrote that.
She does get better, and then Kevin Smith's like, I'm just gonna kill her anyways. Thanks. But yeah, I just love that scene, and especially I love the fact that like when he rescues Karen, he puts on like a fake voice, and she's like, "Why didn't you make a red costume?" Well, what do you mean, Miss Page? Well, you're call yourself Daredevil. It would make more sense for it to be red, which I actually think is the actual reason why he eventually went to a red costume. I'm assuming with the comic book history-wise, it was probably because red was cheaper than making it yellow and black. As someone who knows that originally Iron Man was steel gray, but then that color was too expensive to print, so they made him paint it gold, which was yellow. Yeah, I remember when you saw the outro up, you're like, who the fuck is this? That was like my favorite.
I think I sent you the gif of Samuel L. Jackson from Coming to America, where he's like, who the fuck is this asshole?
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's...
It's like, who the fuck is this?
It's kind of funny because he does show up in a Spider-Man story during the Clone Saga.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's the one where he works with the Vulture during that time when the Vulture could like steal people's youth to make himself younger.
See, now I need a crossover where it's Daredevil fighting Judas Traveler. And just whooping the fuck out of him.
Okay, yeah. No, I can live with that.
False prophets.
Actually, Daredevil shows up in that story, and he's wearing that goofy 90s red and black outfit.
Oh, God, does he?
Yeah, because that's the time where he faked that Matt Murdock died, and he's just Daredevil all the fucking time.
Matt Murdock is dead. There's only the devil now.
No, that's basically what he says.
What's the fixation with that at that point? Remember Spider-Man did that shit?
I mean, to be fair, it works better with Matt because Matt's that kind of a character. It doesn't make any fucking sense with Spider-Man.
Mary Jane be like, I'm coming over. You better not be tweaking.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of funny. I love that. I love the interaction with him fighting the Fixer, and he's scaring the shit out of that dude so bad he has a heart attack in fucking time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, which is hilarious to me because I'm like, I love Daredevil. Have you seen what he looks like in that costume?
Yeah, he looks fucking ridiculous.
But apparently here, this man in a fucking devil costume is just that scary.
All I could think of when he showed up and they weren't scared of him was that scene from Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh, yeah. They weren't afraid of me.
Who's this clown? Mr. Kung Fu.
I mean, to be fair, they weren't laughing at the end when Daredevil just...
Yeah, I know. But like, you see what I'm coming from, where that was the first thing that came to mind, was just hearing, thinking that dialogue.
Yeah. Also really love that scene where they're going to shoot pool, and in one of the many scenes where they have, because Daredevil does have, like, heightened senses. Because it's not just he has, like, a sonar. Like, the isotope that blinded him literally heightened every one of his senses. Like, I think it's implied he can actually sense, like, he can smell color. That's why actually he knows what colors things are. He can actually smell the colors. Like, that is how powerful his senses are. Because, like, when he first got blinded, when he was in the hospital, not only was it pain from losing his eyes, he literally could, like as he says, he could, like, smell the lunch on someone's breath, and he could hear, like, car alarms from 5 stories down. So, like, it was like literally overcoming his senses. It wasn't until...
He basically had sensory overload.
Yeah. Only imagine if it'd be like you had the hearing of Superman, basically. Because he actually has to learn not to hear everything, and actually, yeah, he had to learn how to turn everything off. But again, that's for another story. Which also, yeah. Anyway, no, I love that scene where he's shooting pool, and he's somehow able to like knock all the balls in, and even Foggy's like, I don't know how the fuck he does that, and I'm like, yeah, it's almost like he's not really blind. Even though I know he's actually blind, but like there's a lot of times where like I'm almost like it's almost like he's not really blind if you really think about it, like, given his abilities. Then the fact that those jackasses that jump him in the alley because they were hitting on Carrot and he like schooled them at pool and they were gonna beat him up. I'm like, how good are you gonna feel when he
didn't like it when they were telling Helen Keller jokes? I'm like, oh, that's hitting below the belt.
And then he just beat the shit out of them in a fucking alley. Oh, that's one thing I love about Matt. You fuck with him, he's just like, all right, I guess I'll just whoop your asses for a couple of minutes. Probably the other villain that showed up. What was your feelings when the fucking Purple Man showed up?
I was like, oh god, not this shit.
Yeah, like I will admit that's probably the most fucked up shit that happens in this is the Purple Man kidnaps Karen and tries to like have sex with her while she's under his sway. For those of you who are not familiar with the Purple Man, unless you watch Jessica Jones, which, you know. Although here his powers
you know.
Yeah, his powers are really weird here. Like, it seems like if he looks at you, it, like, turns you purple and you, like, start doing his commands. Which, I don't know if that's actually how it is in the other stories that I've seen them in. Although I do love that, like, Matt's immune to the Purple Man's abilities because he's blind. And his radar senses nullify it. Which does make me wonder if Spider-Man, if, like, he can't fall to the Purple Man's way because his spider sense will be like, get the fuck out of here. Wake the fuck up. Because I do know that there are people that can, like, try to, like, mind control Spidey, but, like, sometimes his spider sense will actually, like, nullify it. Because it, like, it knows something's trying to get into his brain and it, like, triggers his...
Yeah.
But, you know, that shit was, like, probably the worst part of this book. I mean, not in, like, a bad way, but I was just like, oh, no, come on. I was having a good time reading this, Jeff Loeb. Is this going to get fucked up? Is this going to get ultimatum levels of fucked up? Is someone going to get eaten? Like, literally, that was what I was worried when I was reading this. And I was like, shit, I can't give this to Colton now because it's going to get all icky and weird. But thankfully
I've read worse.
Well, yeah, but thankfully it didn't because
like,
Matt...
Dude, I'm a historian. I've seen Holocaust documentaries. I've seen worse.
Well, yeah, I know. But, like, there's certain things in comic books I'm like, can we not? But I was happy that this is a feel-good story. So... Matt rescues her before anything fucked up happens.
Yeah.
But I think the color really works there. Because like it goes from being kind of the gray monotones where like everything's kind of like one singular color. Like it was really interesting in that issue because like there's a lot more color as the like book progresses.
Yeah.
But I do also gotta ask, what was your feelings when Electro just was in the book?
I was just like, oh no. No, not fucking Electro. And he's got the whack costume too.
No,
he's got the normal one.
I also love that him and Daredevil have to fight while there's like the Rockettes going on, like, 'cause they're in Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
well, that's
how did we get here?
Yeah, how did we get here?
How did we get here?
So, you started reading a Daredevil comic.
And I just love that, like, all the Rockettes are like, wow, he is so good looking in that costume. Has he got a brother? I also love that that's where Matt finally gets the courage to ask Karen out on a date. But then she asks for a date with Daredevil instead to meet her at, like, the Empire State Building. So so at the end, you know, like, I love when, like, Foggy's like, all right, Matt, I give up. You can have her. And Matt's like,
the fuck are you talking about?
Well, he's like, don't you pull that bullshit with me, Matt. Karen clearly's into you. You can have her. And Matt being like he's like, nah, and then Karen comes, he's like, I got a date with Daredevil. So Matt and Foggy are like, after you, Mr.
Let's get to work.
Yeah, let's get to work, Mr. Nelson. After you. Not after you, Mr. Murdoch. I insist. No, I really loved, like, just the fact that, like, you know, we got all these scenes with the different characters like interacting, and I like that it just kind of builds up to that really fun, silly little moment. And I also like that, as you know, like that also leads into Matt remembering, like, Karen, I miss you, and it still hurts, but like I've realized I can pull through this because you wouldn't want me to fall into that dark place I go to sometimes. And I really like is like, well, one of the other plots that we have in the beginning is like Matt goes to the boxing gym that like him and his dad used to train at, and sometimes would be kind of like a hideout for Matt in some earlier stories, and it's like it's gone out of like so no one owns it. Yeah, it's out of business. It's rotting. And it's shit. Yeah. But then he gets like money. I want to say it's also from like her life insurance because she left it to Matt because she doesn't have any other family. So Matt uses the money to get the gym refurbished. And I can't remember what the name of the gym is, but yeah, I can look it up real quick. Oh yeah, it's called the Battlin' Jack's Gym. He actually gets a longtime sort of kind of Daredevil villain slash kind of good guy Gladiator to run the gym. Gladiator being like this. Okay, as much as I love Daredevil, his villains are really stupid outside of like Bullseye and the Kingpin. This dude is like this. He has like, I want to say schizophrenia or something like that. Okay. And also for reference, Stiltsman was originally a Daredevil villain. Make of that what you will. Gladiator basically has this like schizophrenia slash split personality where like people constantly think because he's so big and strong, like he should be like a fighter. So he made this costume that looks like a Roman gladiator outfit, and he basically beats people to death because he's that powerful. But Matt got him help. He's gone through psychiatric help, and he had like a girlfriend that kind of helped him out. And he's kind of been an off again, on again, falling off the wagon thing. But he hires him to like run the gym, and Matt basically is like, I love you, Karen, I always will, but I have to move on, but you'll always be with me. And it's, I think, very touching. It
seems like that's the theme of a lot of these Jeff Loeb stories, like with Spider-Man Blue and obviously Hulk Gray. It seems like that's like the prevailing theme with a lot of these.
I want to say a lot of that had to do with the fact, because as bringing up Ultimatum, Loeb kind of fell into some hard times here, because I want to say around the time he was writing these, and also when he wrote Ultimatum, his son had died in a tragic accident. And a lot of these were kind of him working through some issues at the time.
Some pent-up emotion, basically.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why a lot of people argue Ultimatum is so... as much as we all kind of rag on Loeb, I understand why that story became as it was. He just wasn't in a good place to write that. But here, I think this works really, really well. Now, would you say that it's better or worse than Blue?
As somebody who needs to reread Spider-Man Blue, because it's been a while.
Yeah.
I want to say it's on par with it. I think for me personally, Spider-Man Blue has a little bit more of a profound impact emotionally.
Yeah.
But that also could be I'm more attached to those characters,
Which is fair.
If it were someone that was the exact opposite, they're more attached to the Daredevil cast of characters.
Yeah.
They could have the same reaction to Spider-Man Blue that I had to this. That I really, really enjoyed it, and I really, really enjoyed the way it was, the presentation, the characters, the way it was written, the art style.
Yeah.
I think I would have liked it more had I had much more of a relationship with those characters going in.
Yeah.
Like I already do with Spider-Man Blue, where I have a very profound attachment to those characters. So therefore, like, those kind of stories with those characters are more powerful.
Yeah, which is fair. Honestly, I don't think I could say one way or the other which is better, because they're both very different in what they're doing. Because this is very much more about Matt kind of overcoming his grief, whereas with Spider-Man Blue, it's about Peter kind of, I don't want to say wallowing in his grief, it more kind of stuck, which is always kind of the case with Peter, especially in this time period with Gwen Stacy. I actually argue Spider-Man Blue is one of the reasons why Gwen got such a resurgence in popularity at the time. Outside of the weird fucking shit that J. Michael Straczynski did with the character. That only now just got fixed.
I was like, what do you mean? That never happened.
Yeah.
That never happened. What are you talking about?
Look, man, I'm glad they fixed it.
That never happened. I don't know what you're talking about.
I was there when it was being written, Colton. Don't tell me it wasn't. It wasn't.
You don't know what you want. Not if you ever did.
I mean, that's true.
It's,
But yeah, as a whole, I do think that, like, it's not really fair to rate either as, like, being better than the other, because they're both doing very different things. And so, like, although I will admit, I probably, like you, I would say I like Blue a little bit more, but again, that's because I'm a Spider-Man guy more than I am a Daredevil dude.
yeah. But so if you had to rank it out of 10, like we always do, what would be your ranking?
I'd actually give this probably a 9, if I'm honest.
That's actually what I was gonna give it. I would probably give it a 9.5.
Yeah. Because there's nothing really wrong with it. Like,
I think it's a great
Yeah.
a great little story that is very self-contained. You know?
Yeah. Like, the only things I could say that were wrong with it is just the kind of off feeling with the origin story. But that's, again, because, like, I've read,
You're so used to one version of it.
yeah, I'm so used to it, and you know, I've never read the very, very original origin story for it. So, for all I know, that actually was how the story went originally, you know. But like I said, I really love this story, from the art to how it kind of captures, like, the really early Daredevil, where it was less about, you know, oh, the Hell's Kitchen is my city, and I'm its guardian devil, and I'm all angsty and dark and blah and death, and I feel so guilty for killing.
Nirvana soundtrack in the background.
Like, you know, I'm just so dark. Like, it was nice for just Matt to just be an adventurer, and he's, like, fighting just, like, goofy, silly goons and gangsters. Although it was really hilarious seeing that he was, like how they were like, oh, he's new. He's like newer than Spider-Man, which I'm like, that's really fucking.
Where's my AARP card?
You know, I'm like, that's really fucking weird. Especially because nowadays, I want to say they've made it that Daredevil was a thing before Peter.
Which I don't know if I like that.
Like, it's hard to argue. Like,
Sliding time scale.
Yeah, it's sliding time scale. It kind of makes more sense to me just because, like, it's weird imagining that vigilante, like, especially because Peter was 15 when he became Spider-Man. But it's weird. Because, you know, originally Iron Man got shrapnel in his heart in Vietnam, and now it's Afghanistan.
The Fantastic Four were trying to get into space before the Russians.
Yeah, which I don't even know what the modern interpretation of their origin story is anymore.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I like I said, I really enjoy this. The art's really, really good. Like it almost looks like what he did for Long Halloween in a lot of places. Which I remember when I first started reading this, I'm like, did I pick up the right book, or am I reading Batman Long Halloween again? Because, like, I've seen images of, like, Spider-Man Blue, and it does not look nearly as
stylistically like, Jeff Loeb.
Like, it doesn't look like I'm reading the Long Halloween again. Like, it actually looks like he kind of copies, like, Romita Jr.'s art style a little bit.
Which I think works.
Yeah,
which
admittedly that works for Daredevil, because let's be honest, Daredevil and Batman are basically the same thing.
Yeah, basically.
Which unfortunately don't pick up any Batman Daredevil trades, because those crossovers are actually really fucking bad. Because, like, the guys who wrote Daredevil wrote for Batman, and they're like, well, obviously Daredevil's better because he actually murders people on occasion, so, you know, he got that big dick energy.
Listen, it's because Batman is a pussy.
Which is weird, because I'm like, Daredevil don't... Like, people are always like, well, he's killed before. I'm like, he's only killed, like, once or twice. It's not like he's fucking Frank Castle.
It's not like he's out here smoking these fucking people.
Yeah,
seriously.
And not only that, he's killed people that, like, I'm honestly, like, no one's gonna feel bad. He's killed Bullseye once or twice.
Nobody's gonna feel bad that he killed Bullseye.
Hell, even Spider-Man be like, no, I'm glad you killed him. Hell, in Daredevil, the end, he killed Kingpin. Everyone's all sad about that. I'm like, who the fuck is sad about the Kingpin dying?
It's not always about the money, Spider-Man.
It's always about the money, Daredevil.
It's about the drip.
Oh, no. Trust me, when we get to Daredevil port again, literally Kingpin spends, like, his entire criminal empire's money just to fuck with Matt Murdock. I'm like,
bruh.
You know, it's actually the reason why he loses his criminal empire for a while, because he literally goes through all of his money and all of his, like, well, I don't want to spoil Born Again, because that's
we'll get to that. Any final thoughts, my friend?
Do you have anything like any negatives you would give for it?
No, I can say I really enjoyed it. I read it all in one sitting.
Yeah.
Because I was really, really engrossed in it. I really liked it, honestly. I liked it a lot more than I thought it did. I'm glad you loaned it to me.
No, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So yeah, honestly, that's what I'm gonna wrap it up. This is a little hard to find because it's technically out of print.
Same with Spider-Man Blue, but I think it's actually started to go down in price.
Yeah, I got
if
this.
you check your local comic book stores, you might run across it. That was how I got my copy of Spider-Man Blue. I got it for a cover price.
You got so fucking lucky with that, dude. Like
I did, and then remember we went up to that same store a while ago, and I found like the last issue of it in like floppy form for like maybe $4. I was like, what the fuck?
I actually got this for Christmas, but if I remember when I was looking this up to see, because my parents think I'm hard to shop for, so I always try to find like decent deals for this.
Same here, honestly. I always tell my parents, like, you can buy used. I'm not picky.
The hardcover was
I can read the damn thing.
The hardcover for this was like $50.
That's not surprising with the hardcovers, because if you're a real hardcore collector, that's what you go for.
This here, I think floppy wise was $39.
So they're pretty close then. I think a lot of that is because it's out of print.
Yeah, I would try to get the softy on this.
And like I said, if you shop around on eBay or Amazon and like go for used, if you're okay with getting used, you might be able to pick up a good deal on it.
Or like he said, try looking in local bookstores or comic stores, because you might be able to find that for
you might be able to find it. Like I said, when we went into Books A Million that day, I wasn't expecting to find Spider-Man Blue for cover price.
No,
I was expecting that to be marked up. Remember? And then I saw it was covered. I was like, "Are you shitting me?"
No, I could not believe it. If it weren't for the fact that you had it in hand.
So I remember we were talking and I did that.
No, and
you were like, what? And I pulled it out and you're like,
low key, I was like, son of a bitch. Colton has, but at the same time, I was kicking myself. I'm like, oh, why couldn't there have been 2 copies? Because I would have bought that.
Yeah. Well, it's like even when we were looking for the floppies, I was like, damn, man, if I can find the rest of the floppies, I would just give them the trade.
Yeah, next time we need to go back to Action Toyman to see if we can't find any copies of that. It's probably not going to be because like it's super rare. But
remember, I looked through the box.
Yeah,
that was the only one that was there. Yeah. I did look.
Well, that was at Books A Million. We didn't look for that.
That was Books A Million.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's at Action Toy, man.
I mean, we've
come across some crazy shit there.
Yeah, we've come across some crazy shit.
I mean, you bought ROM Space Knight issue number 1,
which I don't regret it, but man, that was a little bit more than I wanted to pay for that. But I
mean, just to have it.
Just to have it, yeah. But anyway, guys, that's been Daredevil Yellow.
This has been the first episode of season 4. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We've been because we've only been doing this for 2 years, or now 3. We're already on 4 seasons.
Yeah, going on 3. I mean, we might actually, if we go at the pace we went last year, we might crack issue 200, episode 200 this year.
Yeah,
which is equally fucking crazy.
Yeah, no, it really is. But anyway, guys, that's it for this episode. Next episode, however, is going to be a little sadder. In fact, we might be feeling a little blue. But until then, guys, I'm Zangetsu134.
And as always, I'm Average Joe Squad.
And as always, we ask you,
remember the hyphen?
And take care.